do think plenty of, Democrats that have tons of verve and energy. I mean, I like Gavin Newsom because he's really pretty to look at, and I think he does a great job in California. I like Kamala and Pete Buttigieg
I love Pete
ticket.
Buttigieg.
I think that looks great.
Do you think they could win, really?
Well, I would vote for them.
Of course,
I hope this country is ready for something like that. I think the brain power alone would just obliterate Trump or
and I would just love to see a state.
All right. So, as you just saw in that clip, The View, everyone's favorite daytime TV show that no one ever watches, apparently thinks that Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis will get absolutely destroyed by the intellectual minds of Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. All right, I don't know about that one, bud. And I'm going to prove that to you with this 2024 prediction based off of popularity and approval polls. None of my personal bias. I mean, maybe a little bit, but, we all have our biases, so shut up in the comments, please. The View, if you unironically think that Trump and DeSantis would beat Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg in the 2024 election as of today, I mean, a lot can change, obviously. Trump 2019 looked like he was going to cruise to victory, and obviously he lost. So, I mean, a lot can change, but based off of today, because that clip was from, I think yesterday's episode. It was very recently. If you think that in this national environment that Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg would stand a chance against Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, I'm sorry. You are just so out of touch with reality. You are just an absolute elitist, which we know The View is. They hate the word. They hate your average everyday folk. We know that. But still, it's just so hilarious because anyone who actually understands political science and politics knows that is just ludicrous to think that Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg would stand a chance in this national environment. I'm going to prove it to you right here, right now. Now, obviously, I know DeSantis and Trump technically cannot run in the same ticket because they're both from the state of Florida, but this is kind of a mock video more than anything. It's going to be a serious prediction, but kind of a mock video, so you know what? I don't really care. Trump and DeSantis, they found a loophole in the Constitution. They are running on the same ticket. So before we get any approval ratings, let's fill into the safe Republican and safe Democratic states. Trump and DeSantis are going to win the entire Great Plains. Obviously, Trump won it back in 2020 and 2016, and they're also going to win much of the Deep South, very Republican area, as well as the state of Alaska. And actually, I think Ohio and Iowa will be safe for Trump and DeSantis. Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg have very little working class appeal, and Ohio and Iowa were already very competitive in 2020. Well, they weren't competitive; they were competitive on becoming safe states. So, for those of you who do not know, a state that is safe, which is colored as dark red and dark blue, means that it went to a candidate by over 10 percentage points. Ohio went to Trump by 8 points. Iowa went to Trump by 9 points back in 2020. So, in 2024, in a solid environment for the GOP, against Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg, I think Trump and DeSantis would win these states by safe margins. I also forgot to fill in the state of South Carolina and Maine's 2nd Congressional District, which is obviously a very working class, a very rural, very white district. It went to Obama twice, then it went to Trump twice, and I think Trump would have no issues carrying it by a safe margin in 2020. Now let's fill in the safe states for Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. They include the states of Washington, Oregon, California, obviously, Hawaii, Illinois, Washington, D.C., Maryland, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, Vermont, Maine's 1st Congressional District, and that's probably going to be it. You're going to notice I did not fill in the state of Delaware. Actually, I don't think we're going to fill in Connecticut either. We're going to keep Connecticut, and I'm iffy on Rhode Island, but I think, you know what? I think Rhode Island will probably be narrowly under 10. So with that, these are the safe Republican and safe Democratic states. As you can see right off the bat, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis have at least 149 electoral votes to Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg 167. All the states here are going to be the semi-competitive states. Obviously, some are going to be more competitive than others, but still, these are the states that will not be safe, that are going to be under 10 percentage points. Let's start filling in the likely Democratic states, which includes the Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and probably Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia. I'm iffy on, but we're gonna leave it. We'll put it in lean. So these are the likely Democratic states. This means that Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg would win these states by 5 to 10 percentage points. And I'm going to say here, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Delaware were actually relatively competitive back in 2016. Hillary only won them by about 11 to 13 points or so. Yeah, they did take a heavy swing back to Biden in 2020, but that was mostly just because of national environment. Trump was absolutely hated by these people in the Northeast, and Biden just had a lot of appeal. He's from Delaware. He's from that part of the country. Biden Democrats are very popular, and Trump made huge inroads with working class communities in states, in places like Rhode Island and Connecticut, and a lot of that hung over. But Biden just did very well in the Democratic areas in Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, and New Jersey to a certain extent, but especially Delaware. Delaware only went to Joe Biden. Only went to Hillary Clinton in 2016 by 11 points. Biden won it by like 25 because it's his home state. And actually, if you looked at polling for 2020, without Biden on the ticket, if Trump were to go against Bernie or Kamala or Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg, which he's obviously on the ticket, the Democrat would only win Delaware by 5 to 10 points. Delaware, without Joe Biden on the ticket, was actually a very competitive state. Obviously, Joe Biden did get the nomination, and with COVID, that really hurt Trump's chances in swing states in the Northeast. Like some people thought Trump might have a chance in New Jersey. He actually held a rally there. New Jersey is a very Democratic state, but Trump made inroads with working class voters there, and he also kept. And also Clinton did not do very well with the Democrats there, and so the states narrowed up. Obviously, Biden managed to remedy that, but I think in 2024 against a very unpopular Kamala Harris. Look at this. Kamala Harris disapproved 11 points, and actually used to be much higher. In April, Kamala Harris was disapproved of by over 26 percentage points. And actually, a lot of these polls actually have her at disapprove of 18 points. These polls, just a couple polls, have her disapprove +4. So really, Kamala Harris is actually probably much more disapproved of than what it says here. It's probably closer to 18 to 20 points based on this. So yeah, Kamala Harris is hated across this country, and Pete Buttigieg, as you can see here, is not much better. He only has a 37% popularity, and 76% of people have heard of him. So yeah, you can say, well, yeah, he's only disliked by 24%. Not many people have heard of him, and those that do, almost half, only about half approve of him. So really, he's not going to add much to the ticket. Yeah, he might do decent. He might help a little bit here and there in in these parts of the country, but really, he's not all that helpful. So I think Trump narrows up the margin here. He does not win these states, but he wins them by likely margins. Similar story with Colorado and New Mexico. I think Trump makes inroads with Hispanics in New Mexico and blue-collar Hispanic voters, socially conservative types who don't like the war on energy, don't like gas prices, and are socially conservative and are anti-immigration. Colorado just kind of narrows up based on national environment. I think Trump only wins it by Kamala, wins it by like 9 points. It only moves like a point or two to the left because the people there are just crazy for the Democrats. The Colorado is such a weird electorate. And that is it. Now we're going to fill in the likely states for Trump and DeSantis, which includes states of Texas, Florida, probably North Carolina, if we're going to be honest. And that's it for now. Let's see. Trump's currently unapproved of by about 12.8%. We go down here though. It's about 13, 14, 10. It's literally this is actually very accurate for Trump's disapproval rating. Like, I mean, obviously there's a couple outliers here. 538 has a B- poll. 538 always tends to favor the Democrats. So if you throw this out, it's pretty much, as you can see here, roughly. But Trump is disapproved of between 10 and 15 points, which does make sense overall. I mean, if you look back here around January 6th, he was approved by 18. So Trump is actually only disapproved by 13, and actually used to be around 10. So Trump has actually made huge inroads in terms of his approval rating, which is he's still disapproved of nationwide, but the Democrat Party actually has more voters as a whole registered because they have the Democrats have so many people in New York and California that yeah, those people may disapprove of Donald Trump, but their vote doesn't mean anything because the state they live in is going to go Democratic by like 30 points anyways. So who cares if they disapprove of Donald Trump? The point is, a lot of these inroads Trump is making is likely with his swing voters. I mean, he went from 18 to 12 over the course of about a year and a half. He keeps this up. He runs a decent campaign in 2024 against, as we've seen here, a very disapproved of Kamala Harris. 16, 20. It's not even going to be close. Trump is going to be more popular than Kamala Harris, which is awful news for the Democrats because they need a solid national environment to win. So you can see here, Trump gets 235 electoral votes. Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg get 196. Trump is already at his 2020 margin of victory in terms of the Electoral College, and we still have all these states to fill in. Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris fill in the lean states. They probably would win at large by a lean. Virginia by a lean. Trump would make inroads with Trump and DeSantis would actually do very well. They probably campaign with Youngkin a little bit, and with Youngkin's very high popularity, and Kamala Harris not being all that liked among suburbanites, especially because of like gas prices, inflation, all that stuff. If Trump just runs a good campaign in 2024, even if he's against Biden, who in my opinion is the strongest Democrat that the Dems can put up, he still probably wins. And so against Kamala, who is just horrible campaigner, horrible candidate. I see no reason Virginia won't go down to lean. Trump probably doesn't win it, but he definitely makes inroads with suburbanites, and he gets even better turnout in the Shenandoah Valley and rural Virginia, winning only narrowing Kamala Harris's win to a lean margin. I think the only other lean state here would honestly be the state of Minnesota, which could honestly be more competitive, but I think as of now I'm going to put it as lean. I think Trump and Ron DeSantis, meanwhile, win the states of Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and New Hampshire by lean margins, and probably Nebraska second district. I'm iffy. We're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it blank for now. Nevada and Arizona. Arizona was actually one of the most competitive states in 2020. Trump only very narrowly lost it in a horrible environment against the relatively popular Joe Biden. The fact that it was only narrowly went to Biden, I think, is just awful news for Trump. Trump and DeSantis against the very unpopular Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, in a national environment where gas is $5 to $6. The price of literally everything you can think of is up. We're being humiliated on the world stage by Russia, and against the Kamala Harris, who's literally just going to laugh on the debate stage while Trump just laughs. The debate between Trump and Harris would be so funny because Kamala would just laugh while Trump just obliterates her, as long as he doesn't go crazy like he did in that first debate. Nevada, similar story. The GOP will likely pick up the Senate and governor race in Nevada this cycle. We keep that energy going. The DSA is just going to say Kamala is a socialist. Vote for her, because they think that's actually what people want when really nobody wants that. And so Kamala just being also disapproved of by 20 to 16%. You can't really see it here, but if you look at her approval rating with Hispanics, it's actually much lower than Biden's, which is saying something. So I think Trump wins the state by a lean margin. Georgia might be iffy. I think Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg would have a lot of appeal to the millennial liberal suburbanite in Atlanta because those people are idiots. But I think Trump and DeSantis having that DeSantis' southern appeal would help him a lot in Georgia. He'd probably do a little bit better with like the exurbs of Atlanta. Probably gets increased rural turnout. And with the national environment, I think Trump would probably win the state by about a point or two. Georgia would actually be much more competitive than people expect it to be, because people would be like, oh, Trump's going to win this election handily. Georgia's going to be likely, if anything. And I think Trump probably only wins it by a point or two, just because of the massive growth Atlanta has seen. But yeah, in the end, I think Trump still does win it. It's going to be closer than people expect, though. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, I don't have to say much. Kamala Harris has absolutely zero blue-collar appeal. This is someone who uses words like Latinx and doesn't visit the southern border and just laughs. And meanwhile, Trump is going to offer actual solutions to these problems like he already has. These states were very competitive in 2020. Trump won both of them in 2016. And I see zero reason he can't flip them back, honestly. Against Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg, I love how the Democrats paint Pete Buttigieg as like this working-class hero because he was the mayor of this small city in Indiana, when this guy is gay, which I'm gonna just say it flat out. Blue-collar Democrats and working-class people in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are not exactly the most pro-LGBT people you can find. Just gonna say that right now. So I think any gains that they think Pete Buttigieg would make with those voters would be absolutely undone by the fact that he's gay and he has adopted children. People there don't really like that in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, the Rust Belt. Shocking as it sounds, Catholic, conservative, blue-collar voters are not big fans of the LGBT community. I know that's shocking to coastal elitists who live in New York and California, but it's just true. If you look at polling, that is very true. And plus, Kamala Harris would have zero appeal to these voters. I mean, these people care about immigration, they care about family values, they're relatively socially conservative. Kamala Harris offers zero of those things. And with a gay vice president who's going to run on like trying to turn out the youth and LGBT vote, which it makes up like 5% of the population, not going to bode well for them. So I think both these states lean to Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Trump's going to do very well with blue-collar voters in Appalachia and in the western part of Pennsylvania. He's going to get very strong turnout in the western part of Wisconsin near the Driftless area, and he'll make inroads with the small inroads with the suburbs, which swung against him just because Kamala is very unlikable and national environment, everything with price of everything going up. Trump just runs a good campaign. He wins these states by a lean margin. New Hampshire always is very anti-incumbent. New Hampshire hates incumbents. It always swings heavily against the incumbent president, like in 2020. Trump very narrowly lost New Hampshire. He only lost by like 3 or 4,000 votes in 2016. 2020, he lost it by like 7 or 8 percentage points. It was a landslide. Similar story with Obama. 2008, he won it in a landslide. 2012, it narrowed up a little bit. 2000, Bush won New Hampshire by a slim margin, but still a decent one. 2004, Kerry won it by a pretty sizable margin. So New Hampshire just always swings against the incumbent party. New Hampshire is also a relatively libertarian state, and so I think Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg would have some appeal there because they're more socially liberal. But I think Trump's just anti-interventionist foreign policy. With the way things are going, Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg would be like, we need to send troops to Ukraine because it's our values and we have to protect democracy. Or Trump would be like, no, that's stupid. Let's focus on issues here. And that rhetoric would actually be very popular in New Hampshire. And so I think just the fact that New Hampshire hates incumbents and Trump would be very anti-war in this scenario and be relatively economically populist and America first, that message would resonate with a lot of New Hampshireans, and I think Trump would win the state by about a point or two. This only leaves the states of Michigan and Nebraska's 2nd District, both of which I think would tilt to the Republican Party, or in this case, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Michigan is a very Republican state. It's a very Democrat state, I should say, for a long time. Very union voter. There's a large black population and Muslim population in Detroit, and it's relatively suburban outside of that. Not a very good environment for the Republican Party until Trump came along in 2016 and appealed to those union voters and even some suburbanites in the state. Michigan suburbs are not your normal suburbs. When you think of the suburbs, you probably think of these like college-educated millennial types making close to 6 figures. That's not Michigan suburbs. Detroit suburbs, Flint suburbs, they're very working class, very blue collar, and those people love Donald Trump. Or so they're beginning to now that they see what's happening. They liked Trump in 2016. Trump very narrowly won Michigan. It was a close state in 2016. Trump very narrowly won it against Hillary Clinton because he appealed to those blue collar suburbanite voters. Meanwhile, Joe Biden came in and he appealed to those voters as well because he's like Scranton Joe. You know, we love Joe. He's this blue collar, blue dog Democrat who's gonna save America from this crazy Republican who only cares about the rich. That was basically the message, and that appeals to those voters. Joe Biden won Michigan by about 3 points or so in 2020. But I think against Kamala Harris, and Pete Buttigieg, who are going to be absolute elitists and who have no appeal to those voters. Yeah, Kamala might do a little bit better in like inner city Detroit with African American voters, but those voters are literally voting for the Democrats by like 95% anyway. They're getting Assad, Bin Laden election margins in Detroit. Not going to matter a whole lot. The swing voters are all going to flip to Trump, and I think Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis would very narrowly carry Michigan. Nebraska's 2nd District is a very suburban area. It used to be a Republican stronghold, but Trump's rhetoric has turned off a lot of those like wine moms and upper class suburbanites. You know, they used to be Republicans because of the tax cuts, but they don't like the GOP now because Trump's offensive or whatever. And those people voted for Biden by huge margins in 2020. But I think in 2024, Trump would win a lot of those voters back just based on the economy. All of these people would hold their nose and vote for Trump just because they hate gas prices. And yeah, they'd virtue signal on Twitter and Facebook saying, look how progressive and look how tolerant we are. When in reality, they voted for Trump. I would not be surprised if that happens. So with that, this is the prediction between Trump and DeSantis versus Kamala and Pete Buttigieg based off of the unfavorability ratings, the approval ratings. So yeah, The View, I don't watch you, so I don't know which one of you even said that Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg would beat Trump and DeSantis. But all I'm going to say is you should probably leave your studio and go outside and see how people view the Democratic Party nationwide, especially Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. As you can see here, not very favorably. So with that, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe for more.